Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this briefing by the Jerusalem Press Club. I'm Talia Dekel. Thank you, everyone, for being here. As we all know, yesterday evening, an Iranian-made rocket fired by Hezbollah hit a soccer field in Madjal, Shams, killing 12 children and wounding dozens of others. The full impact of this terrible incident is, of course, yet to be seen. The death toll here makes this the deadliest attack against civilians since October 7th. And of course, it has hit specifically the Druze community in Israel, in the Golan Heights. And the community itself, we've already seen many statements by officials, has demanded that Israel up the ante in its fight against Hezbollah and hit back more forcefully. Our guest today is Colonel in Reserves, Dr. Barak Ben Zur, an expert on Lebanon, a lecturer at Reichman and Hebrew universities, and a researcher at the International Institute for Counterterrorism, the ICT. Ben Zur served in several senior roles in the Shin Bet, Israel's security agency, after a military career of more than 2 decades. He is the recipient of the Roizman Prize in Intelligence Studies for his work on the influence of leaders on the performance of the Israeli intelligence community. Hello, Dr. Ben Zur, and thank you for joining us at such short notice.
Pleased to be here, and thank you for having me.
So we already know that Israel has conducted some precision strikes after the attack, but we've also heard promises of a significant response. Is this the last of Israel's response? Do you think that this incident will be a game changer in the current policy towards the north, which has been somewhat of accepting the situation?
Well, the situation in the northern border of the state of Israel is almost unchanged since the beginning of the Hezbollah involvement back in October 8, 2023. It is in the same kind of friction and smashing of capabilities on both sides, but with no ground maneuver and attacks of Israeli armed divisions or paratroopers or other units of this kind. I would like to have some remarks as the outcome of the tragic but tactical event that occurred yesterday. And we know that using such rockets, especially those that are containing almost 100 pounds of explosives, when it affecting concentration of civilians, the outcome is very clear. It occurred in the Lebanese side of the border, and it occurred in the Israeli side of the border. But as a tragic and so significant event, we have to ask some questions and discuss the situation. It's not a normal situation because we are mingled and engaged in the southern part of the Israeli front, and we are deepening nowadays the Israeli military achievements in Gaza Strip. There is a kind of a silent counterterrorism activity in the West Bank, and there are really significant achievements with dismantling the terror infrastructure in this part of the country. And we have to take in consideration the behavior of the Israeli Arab population, that since the first days of the event, they are keeping solidarity with their citizenship as Israeli citizens. The question is, if we will get in a much larger, even full-scale war with Lebanon and Hezbollah, if those two components will be in the same situation, and we will can continue with such a policy. The second question is the question of isolating the battlefield if there will be a full-scale war in Lebanon with Hezbollah, because we cannot avoid a ground maneuver, and this kind of war can bring new components to the area, especially the Iranian involvement in two different phases. The first one, to resupply and reinforce the Hezbollah through their capabilities that were built in the last 2 decades. There is a significant force of militias. There is a headquarters of Iranians stationed in Syria, and they can, in a short while, be effective in the Israeli border, endangering Jordan, endangering the Golan Heights, and so on. Secondly, the second phase can be similar to April 13. And once they will be fully engaged, including UAVs, ballistic missiles, and other kinds of attack from Iranian soil, the question is if we will have the same umbrella, the same cooperation that was led by United States of America. And we should ask this question, because the price that Israel will pay, otherwise there will be no such cooperation with the Americans, the situation will be different. The third question is if the Israeli military forces, from a logistical point of view, from the Israeli reserve forces, the Israeli economy, if all of those are already prepared for a long war in Lebanon. I am familiar, I was there with the Lebanese terrain. I was stationed in the Shuf area. I was stationed in the Bekaa Valley. I know for sure what is the condition inside Lebanon. Once you have logistic routes that are beginning in the northern part of Israel, and they are finished some 120 kilometers north of the Israeli border. There are logistical problems, there are difficulties that should be resolved before we are giving the first order to Israeli ground forces to cross the border. Those are questions. Those are things that should be asked, considering a decision to get in a situation that will open a vast and full-scale war against Hezbollah. The fourth thing is the role of the Russians. As you know, since 2015, the Russians were fully engaged in the situation, backing Bashar al-Assad regime and keeping him in power as the outcome of their interest in Syria. If the player Hezbollah will pull out of Syria, I'm not sure, but this can be an initial step and a sign for the rebels in Syria that are still there. As you know, the Alawis are only 14% of the Syria population, and a new rebel can initiate and start in Syria. And I'm not sure, taking consideration the situation between Russia and Iran those days, concerning the war in Ukraine, that the Russians will be happy about Israeli full-scale war in Lebanon, endangering their interests in Syria. Those are at least 4 questions that the Israeli high-rank politicians and security members of the Israeli military staff and so on should be asked and taken into consideration. Once they can initiate a military operation that will endanger the situation in the northern border from this kind of war that is conducted by the Israeli Air Force that already have done a lot of things that are very important from the Israeli point of view, killing almost 400 armed people, including high-rank commanders of Hezbollah, dismantling the infrastructure, including communication, intelligence, and the control and command posts all over the southern part of Lebanon, and a variety of additional achievements against the Hezbollah. And I think that if the retaliation will be in this mode, in this style, in this kind of approach, maybe we will not dare to a full-scale war. And those questions, I assume, that will be asked at the meeting of the Israeli pre-cabinet, those people that are really making the decisions concerning the strategic and the operational Israeli policy. And we should wait and see how it will be concluded this evening.
Of course, we will wait and see because we don't really have any other choice, but I'm sure we're still going to try to pick apart what possibilities lie ahead. So first of all, thank you for that and for detailing all the considerations that Israel has before it. Do you think in an alternative scenario, which is something like what you described towards the end, that is something more limited, a more limited reaction, will this will this be enough, first of all, for the Druze community, which has taken now, the hardest hit so far of any other community since October 7th? And second of all, in terms of the fact that there are still over 60,000 Israelis still essentially homeless for 11 months. None of the alternative situations that have been described really answer that scenario. Don't bring the sense of security back to everybody. So is this something, first of all, as the Druze community, but also as the entire community in the north, is this something that we can live with, this limited type of reaction?
Well, the decision to evacuate the Israeli population from the strip that is close to the border was exactly because the knowledge and the understanding that such things can occur, because once you are using statistic weapon as the field rockets or the same 122 rockets that are used, or even anti-tank missiles and and the other weapons of this kind that are relatively short range. The field is 10 kilometers and 107 millimeters, it's 5 to 6 kilometers and so on. Never mind. The decision to evacuate the Israeli population was precisely because of this assumption that such things can take place. And this was the main reason that people were moved from the border. It's not a simple decision, but in a trade-off of cost and benefit, the lives of those people, it's much important than being there close to the border. And it's historic and let's say a new kind of approach that was not in the past. And this was the very reason that the Israeli security establishment recommended to do so. This is the reason. And since then, the situation is not changed, because the opening of this front was because of the Israeli retaliation in the Gaza Strip. This was the reason that the Hezbollah opened fire against the Israeli state. And this was the very reason. And we should look to that situation in two levels. The one, the level that I already mentioned, what is the main target, what is the main aim, what is the Israeli first priority once they are engaged in a military activity. The answer is that deepening the achievements in Gaza Strip, releasing the people that are captured by the Hamas terror group, is the first aim of the Israeli policy. And once we are accepting that, every additional or other activity can endanger those achievements. And I mentioned as well the achievements in the West Bank. You can look what is going on in Tulkarem and Hebron and Ramallah and Shem and those places. You can see how the Israelis step by step are dismantling this infrastructure. It's very important for the Israeli security. And once we are diminishing the Israeli capabilities in Gaza Strip and in the West Bank, you can take in consideration that it will revive the capabilities in those places. And we should finish the job in those places, maybe in the near future, after finishing the work in Gaza Strip and the West Bank, we will be free to continue in vis-a-vis Hezbollah. But doing that, when we are very angry and excited and so on, because it was a very tragic event. Small children were massacred in a play yard. Well, this is a kind of thing that can move everyone and affect everyone, but I'm not saying that it's a Machiavellic approach, but it's a realistic approach. We have to ask those questions that I asked, that if Israel is prepared to open a new front, and what are the
consequences.
effect? Yeah, right, precisely. And we have to look 2 or 3 steps ahead in order to understand what will be the outcome of such a decision. And I have the questions. I don't have the answers. Well, I will say that we are in the middle of a war, and we are not, let's say, capable to do it in the both places in the same time, and we should be restrained and act in a calculated manner.
Understood. You've mentioned obviously the war in Gaza several times. We know that at least in terms of what the Prime Minister was saying and what was said at meetings in Washington over the weekend was that Israel and the relevant parties were coming closer and closer to a ceasefire deal, at least a temporary ceasefire, that would see to the release of some of the hostages. How does yesterday's incident impact this negotiation? Can Israel be seen continuing to negotiate while at the same time, having to deal with this larger problem?
Well, I think that there are 2 things that we don't know. The first one is the replacement of Hamas and building a new kind of governance in Gaza Strip that can replace this group and not giving them any space to future governance, as it was in Egypt. After the taking power of Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, that smashed the Ikhwan al-Muslimin, meaning the Muslim Brotherhood, and after a long period of time, since 1928, they disappeared from Egypt and have no effectiveness in that great nation. The same problem was in Syria, and we saw it in Jordan, but the Jordanians are doing that in a different manner. The same problem we are facing here in the West Bank and in Gaza Strip, and we should work for a plan that will give for a future, because we will not be in Gaza Strip, and this should be a part of the large and the future plan after we will finish the military activity. And I don't see, maybe for tactical, operational level, that there will be some agreement in order to release the captured Israelis in the hands and the hostages that they are holding in Gaza Strip. But the most important thing is to find an alternative that will be not an Israeli one for the Hamas governance in Gaza Strip.
What do you make of the kind of taking of responsibility and then rescinding the responsibility that we saw come out of Hezbollah last night? And a follow-up question that one of the journalists are asking is whether it's possible that there was a different target for the attack and the rocket went astray.
Well, it's not so important. We are looking to the outcome of the event. It's a statistical weapon. And once you are using it, you should take in consideration that after thousands of rockets that were launched to the territory of Israel, one will hit a populated area. And once 50 kilograms, 100 pounds of explosives entering in the middle of a playground where are dozens of children, this is the outcome. No matter what Hezbollah will say and how they are explaining that, and no matter what the Israeli air defense will say and how they are explaining that. This is a statistical thing. It will occur once you are launching thousands of rockets towards a populated area. This is the situation. You cannot avoid it.
You mentioned that one of the considerations that Israel is obviously taking when it decides what scale of a response to attack with is obviously what role Iran will have in a direct response, similar to what we saw in mid-April. How then do you think the Israeli Defense Echelon or the cabinet itself is taking Iran into consideration when it's planning its next moves? We know that Iran is behind both of these armed groups attacking Israel. So what then can Israel be doing vis-a-vis Iran without entering a direct confrontation with it in the future?
Well, we saw it very clearly. It was crystal clear what the Iranians can do and how the American assistance that succeeded to concentrate and cooperate with other countries, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, and even parts of the Iraq military forces, how they performed all together under CENTCOM, cooperating with the Israeli security forces. This is an example that was proved, that was, let's say, carried out with full success. You know, that, as I say, a cocktail of UAVs and ballistic missiles and other missiles that were launched towards Israel, almost 95% were intercepted, and the damage was a minor one. This is an example that worked, and Israel should verify before it will order or start any future military activity, that such jointness and working together will be assured before any Israeli military activity.
We're almost out of time, so I just will wrap up with the last few questions that have been sent in. One question revolving around the continued evacuations. Do you believe that given yesterday's event, we might see further evacuations in the Golan, as well as in other parts of Israel?
Well, it should be taken in consideration. I'm not sure that the population will accept it. And I think that security measures should be practiced, and to find the way that can give shelter to people and change the orders of behavior such close to the border in the range of those rockets. That should be precise, and maybe to organize the local civilian defense, and to react to such a threat from the Hezbollah. I'm not sure, and it should be investigated how this tragic event took place and occurred, and to take countermeasures. I think that to evacuate from the Golan Heights, it will be a much, let's say, dramatic decision, and I'm not sure that we are there.
Understood. So just one final question that is also follow-up to one of the other considerations that you had mentioned, which is really what the level of international cooperation Israel might have down the line if it does decide to go into a more intensive war in the north. Do you think that maybe it actually makes sense to take such action in the current administration that we have in the US, given that we know now who is in power, whether that affects our ability to operate or not? And because we know that we do not know who will be at the White House at the beginning of next year.
Well, in the Israeli reality, we're looking to the day after tomorrow, not a month in the future, or 3 months, or let's say 6 months. It's a long period of time. I think that the present administration in the United States of America proved itself in the practical base of assisting the Israeli security, military forces, and even the political leadership. Once they came here in the first week of the Hamas surprise attack on the Israeli border, and gave, let's say, a full, robust support to the Israeli leadership, moral support, and giving them the assurance that the United States of America is standing beside the Israeli state with any kind of hesitation. Of course, there are questions, there are argues, there are some, let's say, misunderstanding, especially with the humanitarian subjects and things of this kind. But as a whole, I think that Israel, if there will be a cooperation and if they will play with open cards and with honesty with the American establishment, I think for the near future, Israel will get the backing that it needs once it will be again in a very, let's say, delicate and sensitive situation.
Understood. I wish we had another half an hour because there really is so much that we would like to ask in addition. Unfortunately, we
Always
don't.
will be subjects to deal with in the Israeli reality. There is no, let's say, a boring day in the Israeli ongoing situation.
Very, very true. Colonel in Reserves, Dr. Barak Ben Zur, thank you so much for your time and your insight. And I hope the next time we speak will be after less tragic developments.
You're welcome.
Have a good day. Goodbye.
Ciao.